2020 Chateau de Pitray from Bordeaux. And of course, this is going to be for our Bordeaux episode. You know, when I think of Bordeaux, I probably, like you, think of history. I think of classic, iconic, legendary, all the things. And this wine is no exception. This is definitely leaning into the heritage of Bordeaux. And we're talking about the right bank of Bordeaux, which is usually marked by a more Merlot or Cabernet Franc dominant wine. On the left bank, of course, we're talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, but we're going to be really close to Saint-Emilion today. And we're talking about this wine because this is a wine that I think represents the right bank incredibly well, in addition to the entire region of Bordeaux. But also, it's a producer that is still family owned and operated and has been so for 600 years. Bordeaux has been a place similar to Napa Valley that we've seen a lot of change in recent years. And Bordeaux is a place in which, you know, a lot of the more famous chateaux are actually owned by larger corporations. So the fact that this is still very much family owned and operated is really special. This is going to be a wine that's 75% Merlot, but don't panic if you don't love Merlot, because I think this is a wine that might change your mind. I don't know why we're still on this we hate Merlot train, but we've got to get off it. I think I need to just stop talking about it, right? This is 75% Merlot with a little bit of Cabernet Franc and Malbec mixed in there. So of course, a great right bank Bordeaux blend. When we talk about Bordeaux, I think one of the things I'm always struck by is how many people feel like you need to age Bordeaux in order for it to be delicious, which often is not the case. Bordeaux can be really delicious even young. And this is a great example of that. Now, of course, if you wanted to go back and get a few bottles and age it, I don't think that you'd be disappointed. In fact, I think it'd be a great value for you to buy from the 2020 vintage, which was a lovely vintage in Bordeaux. And I think it would be great to lay down for 10, 15, even 20 years. So if you're thinking about a bottle for someone that was maybe born in 2020 that you want to age for a little while that won't break the bank, I think this is a great example of that. And also a wine that you're not going to see everywhere. All right, so let's talk about this wine. Merlot. I love Merlot, and I especially love Merlot from the right bank where it's super, super famous and does really, really well. On the nose, you're going to notice a little bit of that plumminess. I think I get a little bit of that like savory herbaceous thing going on. But there's also something really graphite-y, and to me, that is the textbook quality of Bordeaux, right? You get all that great fruit, but you also get something that's a little earthy, and that graphite, to me, just screams Bordeaux out of the glass. There's also like this really lovely anisette, and if that's not, if like Fernet, if anise isn't really your thing, it's super subtle. It's really kind of like underneath there, but it's definitely there, and it's giving it this sort of like mysterious, stealthy sort of thing going on. Like this is not a wine that I think it's a super fun wine to drink, but I think it's giving it this sort of like mystique. You can really play around with the nose in this wine. And I think if you have the time to just sit with it, decant it for maybe 15 minutes, you will not be disappointed. I think this wine is really going to open with time and give you a lot of different things. So definitely keep revisiting it, keep moving your head around, come back to it, give it some air, and just see all the different things that you're getting in this glass. I think for those of you that are really trying to hone your nose, figure out what you're smelling. I mean, just line up lots of different scents and start trying to pick them out of this glass, because I promise they're probably there. Mm. This is a great example of a wine that I think the palate and the nose really match each other. So a lot of the things that you're getting on the nose right now, you're also still really getting on the palate. So you're getting all of that plumminess, which is very textbook Merlot. You're also getting a little bit of that anisette that kind of lives right underneath of there. And then you're getting all of this herbaceousness. Now we've talked about Cabernet Franc coming from Chinon, from the Loire Valley, with that other wine that we have in the shipment. And there is a good amount of Cabernet Franc in this wine. And I think it's really lending itself to that savoriness, that sort of bell pepper thing that we were talking about from Chinon. I think it's actually coming out in the glass a little bit here. It's not coming from the Merlot. It is definitely coming from the Cabernet Franc. So if you're getting that, if you're getting a little bit of that savory, sagey, that green bell pepper thing, know that that's really coming from the Cabernet Franc that has been blended into this wine. I think this is a stealthily full-bodied wine. And I say that because as you drink it, it's going to sort of layer on top of each other. That first sip, you're like, oh, yeah, that's full body. But like, is it a little bit light? as you take that second and third sip, they start to build on top of each other, and those tannins start to layer and sort of play in your mouth. And you realize this is a much fuller bodied wine than maybe you initially thought. So this is definitely wine that wants to play with your bigger proteins. So don't be afraid to get your steaks out for this one again. Again, I think, we purposely chose a lot of these wines knowing that a lot of you are going to be breaking out that grill very soon. If you haven't already, this is the time. If you want to keep drinking your red wines, which I totally encourage, these are all wines that are going to go really, really well with all of your grilled foods. Again, meat or veg, anytime that you're getting a little bit of that charcoal, these wines work super well, and they're going to play in different ways. The other thing I just want to point out is if you are not someone that has traditionally loved Bordeaux and old world wines, to me, this is a great way of making that transition from something that's new world, like from Napa, to something that has a little bit more of those savory tendencies. I think it still has a ton of fruit, a ton of juiciness, but there is, again, it's being bolstered by those other things. It's being bolstered by that graphite. It's being bolstered by a little bit of that earthiness, that umami-ness, that green bell pepper. So I think you're sort of getting the best of both worlds in a wine like this. And I think that's true of a lot of your right bank Bordeaux blends. They tend to have, especially when you've got so much Merlot in them, they just tend to have a juicy sensibility, which is one of the things I love about Merlot. Merlot, a grape that I think, we're still recovering from the movie I won't even talk about. But we are still recovering from the Merlot situation from back in the early 2000s, which is a shame because Merlot is such a delicious grape. But also, it's a grape for those who know that they love Merlot, know that they can get a great value on. I think you're going to love this wine. I think it's super fun. There's a lot to play with, especially aromatically here. So if you love this, listen to the episode, drink this wine with us, make some dinner. It's going to be a great time. And maybe consider going to Bordeaux because it's a beautiful place to visit.